It's a cold, brisk, but sunny morning here on the Methow River. Right in the foreground here, I'm looking at the bridge over the river at Carlton. And with me this morning is Keith Roe. Now, if you fish the Methow River, you probably know Keith because he is one of the fish checkers that keeps track of the number of wild and hatchery fish caught in the stream. And you know, in his spare time, Keith catches quite a few steelhead, and he has really refined the technique for fishing this size of river, and that usually means using some pretty light tackle, and he's agreed to share some of what he's developed over the years fishing on the Methow. And you've been fishing the Methow, Keith, what, since the late 70s?
Yeah, about 77, 78.
So you're familiar with every rock and stump in this creek.
Well, most of them, though, they change every year. And I moved over here in about 83.
Yes.
So then from then on, it's been pretty steady. And until they closed it in 97, then they reopened it in 2002. And
right.
Every year, it's been nonstop.
We've had some really good, consistent years with returns of steelhead.
Yeah.
And you know, there's sort of a mixed blessing with that. And I think I recall this year 60% of the fish were going to be wild. Now that's good news for recovery because that means we're getting a lot more wild fish coming back to the Upper Columbia. The bad news for anglers is that they're going to be releasing a lot of fish. And people that want to keep a steelhead for the barbecue or a Christmas dinner, that's a disappointment. But for those of us that just land the thrill of catching and releasing steelhead, we're living in wonder.
Yeah. The ratio has been about almost 50-50, depending on where you're fishing on the Methow, the lower end, the upper end, and then you get to Columbia and that kind of stuff. So chances are you're going to get a hatchery fish or two. Once you get your two, you're done anyway. So
that's right. Who wants to
for this
quit
year?
Early?
You know.
And also, now, what would you say in an overall average size for steelhead on the Methow River?
This year, 2/3 of the run is what we call one salt fish. So that's going to run you between 4 and 6, 7 pounds. And then the other third is going to be the two salt fish, which are the bigger fish.
Right.
And they're going to run you, that 9 to, even up to 16 pounds if you find one of that size.
That's a big fish in this small water, I'll tell you.
It'll give you a tussle.
Well, and I know that's one of the reasons that you've developed techniques that usually the Methow River, particularly when we get into the winter time when the water gets lower, you're talking a lot about low water and clear conditions. Right. And that can be a challenge. And so now, oftentimes I've used up to a 3/8 ounce jig on the main stem Columbia when there's a lot of current and maybe some turbidity, some color in the water. But now Keith, he kind of laughs at me when he hears about those weights because you're talking to a guy that ties 16th and 1/32 ounce jig.
And a few 1/64s.
And some 1/64s. Now we're talking about extreme end of light tackle presentations.
Correct.
And this is what's going to be exciting to learn about, is not only those styles of jigs, but then what other tackle components you put together to make for subtle presentations on low, clear conditions on the Methow River. So what we're going to start off with today is some step-by-step instructions on what components that you put together and recommend for fishing this type of water on a smaller river like the Methow here in central Washington. No one is happy about having to repair a vehicle after an accident. However, I was very happy when I chose First Choice Collision Center when I needed this service. I can't say enough about how they treated me. Fast and friendly just doesn't say enough. They have amazing technology to make a damaged vehicle look like new. At First Choice Collision Center, you can expect modern service with old-fashioned values. That was my experience, and I'm sure it will be yours too.
No matter where anglers are heading, whether it's Banks Lake, Lake Roosevelt, or Rufus Woods Reservoir, they all make the same stop. That's at Big Wally's in Coulee City. Here they find everything they need for a successful day on the water: fuel, ice, a tackle shop, and people who know what they're selling behind the counter, state and tribal licenses, even a hot breakfast or lunch. When you're on the go, don't forget to stop at Big Wally's and visit their website at bigwallysfishing.com.
We're going to start right at the beginning. I want to be able to take people step by step through the process and how you rig for low water, clear conditions. Now, let's start with the rod. And on the main stem Columbia, I'm fishing from a boat most of the time.
Right.
And the rod I'm currently using is 10-9. Now, on a river, you've got more challenges with moving water and all of that. And of course, line control is really important for steelhead fishing. So, what's your favorite rod length?
12.5, 13.5.
Yes.
Usually a light action or light to medium. Something that'll handle up to 10 pounds of line minimum weight of your line.
Right.
And as far as castability for the amount of weight it'll cast, anywhere from 1/16 or 1/8 to, you can go as high as maybe ½ ounce or 3/8 ounce.
Right.
So.
And again, the length of that rod allows you to keep that line high.
That's right.
And very easy then to mend the line, almost like with fly fishing.
Exactly.
The challenge is keeping a nice straight line to your bobber. You don't want to have a bunch of slack line laying on the water, because when that bobber goes down, you've got to be on it.
You want to be on it pretty quick.
That's right. Now tell me, you've got your nice long rod here, and you were showing me earlier kind of a specialized reel. Some of the choices, some of the more popular reels, and I notice you have one, is the Pflueger President.
That's right. And I've used the Pflueger for many years. I mean, the Pflueger President. I've used Pflueger for many years, but the President, like the one that's on this one rod here, about 6 years, and it's caught a lot of fish. A couple years ago, Pflueger came out with a new reel.
Yes.
And it was called the Arbor. And what it is I'll bring it up here and show you.
Yeah.
And what it is it has a larger arbor diameter-wise.
Nice big spool
Exactly.
head.
And the nice thing about that is that when you're casting lighter stuff, it comes off real easy.
Yes.
And when you're just getting the drift for the line just to keep peeling out as you're drifting down, it comes off real easy. And then the other thing is that when you're picking line back up, it picks it up faster. Because especially if you're doing a long drift and you get a bobber down, and you got to be back into it, and you want to pick up some line, you may have a lot of slack out. You got to pick it up as fast as possible. So, and it comes in different sizes.
Yes.
And you just match the size to your rod or how much line you want to put on here.
Right.
This particular one will hold 150 yards of 10-pound mono, which is what I have on. And then it also it has a rating and an extra spool for braided or spectra line, whatever you need. And that particular spool is designed so you don't have to put backing on it like you're supposed to with most braided line or spectra line.
Right.
So, but that's what I found that I like. And I've been using this for now 2 years or 3 years, and I've really enjoyed it.
And one of the reasons the Pflueger and the President has been popular with steelhead anglers is it's got an excellent drag.
That's right. The drag's good, the bearing systems, everything. I mean, like I said, and I'm using the President, which is kind of the moderate low end. I've never had any problem with it.
Yeah.
I haven't worn it out yet, and I've wore out other reels.
Yes.
In shorter time.
I've used one myself for many years, and this is another great Pflueger product. And one of the things you mentioned now, I use an Abu Garcia Sauron reel, which was the first reel that was built that had a spool for braided lines.
Right.
So it had a rubber grommet in there that allowed the line to bind to it,
exactly,
and it wouldn't slip on the spool, and they've incorporated that into one of the spools that's available.
Right, they have rubber strips that are embedded into the spool itself.
There's a lot of nice features. This larger arbor is a key, especially like you say, when you're extending your drift, allowing that line to get down, and then also a fast pickup.
That's right. It is important.
Now then, you've got a router reel, and today you say you've got mono on here, and that's for really cold conditions.
Yeah, when it's cold out. Well, when we pulled in here, I think it was 18.
Yes.
the spectrum lines or the braided lines have a tendency to get really stiff, and then because they shed water, they shed the water right into the reel of the spool, and it has a tendency to, you can't cast.
Right.
So
Freezes up.
when it's really cold, I use a mono, and I use what I'm using right now is a Raven mono, and it's was actually designed for the guys who do the center pinning, and it's a semi-buoyant line, so which means it gets a little float on the surface.
A lot better than straight mono, which
right.
is going to be a problem for barbers.
And you want high vis.
Oh yeah.
So that when you're mending, you can see where your line's at and pick it up off the surface.
Right.
So.
And then when we get a little bit warmer conditions, say, you know, a real warm 30 degrees.
Then I switch over to the HydroFloat that I use.
Right.
So.
And you know, the HydroFloat is a good bobber fishing line. Also, you know, there's some other lines that the key is it's got to float. It's got to be buoyant.
And like I said, it's float, and then you want something in high visibility so that you can see that line as you're drifting.
Right.
In case you have to mend it to adjust your drift itself. So yeah.
Okay. Well, and then of course you're going to scale down everything. Well, for example, right now, why don't you show us the type of bobber that you would use?
I use 1 or 2 brands, and one is the Drennan.
Okay.
It's a clear plastic.
Yeah.
It's a slip float.
Oh, and I see you can rig this either through the eye,
right,
or through the bobber,
right,
itself. Okay.
And there's some other companies that make similar floats. Again, this one comes in grams instead of quarter
gotcha.
ounce or
yeah.
ounce fractions. So you have to kind of do a little math to figure out, you know, this is 11 grams, so that's 3/8, I think, roughly, is what it
right.
breaks out to. Now the other ones I use are what they call the West Coast Drift Float, and it's a dense foam type float, and again, that's a quarter ounce, and so
very light, and you know, compared to the ones we're using on the Upper Columbia, just scaled down,
right,
more slender and all that. And I'll tell you what, that bobber system is going to work great. In our next segment here, I think I want to talk about the types of leaders you use, and really talk about the kind of jigs that Keith uses, because he's a real specialist in that too. So we're going to be talking about that here real soon.
The Evinrude E-Tech. It's a dream come true.
For E-Tech engine sales and service and repair of all boats and motors, call Lyle's Boats and Motors in Kashmir, 663-5191.
When the weather starts to cool, it's the signal for hot fishing for steelhead. If you're not ready for this exciting season, better get to Hooked on Toys in Wenatchee. They have everything a steelheader needs, from rods and reels to jigs and bait. There is no better selection of all this gear than what you'll find on the shelves at Hooked on Toys. Get geared up. Get to Hooked on Toys, 1444 North Wenatchee Avenue, and be sure to visit them online at hookedontoys.com. Well, we've walked through the process of getting rigged properly for this style of fishing up here that we do on the Methow with bobbers. And we got down to the bobber, but now I want to remind people we've got a knot, and then we've got a bead, and then we put on our bobber, and then a weight below that.
Right.
You know, the whole idea is all of that slides up to that knot, and that's how you adjust your depth. And you can very easily change your depth by sliding that knot
right.
up or down, depending on your drift.
And we can show that right here, kind of. So basically, you got your float, your weight, and here's your knot. So basically, you can move that up, or you can move it down depending on the depth you want to fish.
There you go.
So
it's just that easy, and it makes it so effective. We were talking a little bit earlier too about, you know, there's a lot of different techniques that'll catch steelhead.
That's right.
You can fish a corky. You can do as simple as spinners. But one of the reasons this is so popular is it avoids the hazards that you really run into frequently when you're fishing those other methods. This one allows you to keep out of the snags.
If you're going the right depth.
If you're going the right depth. And that's why it's really important to watch that bobber to give you a reading of what's going on down below.
That's right.
Now, one of the things that makes it a challenge with the style of fishing that Keith has done and is refined is these ultralight jigs, 16th to a 32nd to even 64th ounce. You really have to watch that bobber closely to see what's going on.
Yeah, and the nice thing about the lighter jigs, the 32nds or the 1/64ths, and to some extent some of the 16ths, is in the river you're not going to snag into rocks because it's so small it just kind of goes through a lot of those rocks.
That's true.
The other thing is you want to keep it up off the bottom, 6 to 12 inches, and the lighter jig, because of current and so forth, doesn't deadhead float along. Or not float, but drag along. It actually moves side to side, up and down. It's not just sitting there blah and going along like an anchor.
Any breath of current is going to
Exactly.
impact that jig.
So
It's going to have a lot livelier action under the water.
And your marabou, your rabbit, whatever material is breathing the whole time, and it's stimulating those fish.
Yes, makes it very attractive. Well, let's take, one of the things I wanted to mention is something that's a little different than I do, is an inline sinker that has swivels on both ends, so this isn't going to slide up and down. It's going to be fixed to your line, but your bobber will move up and down. Which, another thing that Keith has shown me is that even when he's using a line that floats, like one of the super lines, he actually puts some monofilament below that so that his bobber is sliding on the mono rather than on the super line, which causes abrasion. But now let's really get down to business and show people some of the jigs that you tie.
Okay, well, for today, we're doing the black, and it's actually black, white head and red accent on it, and that's been working pretty good. Some of the other ones of late, I mean, here's one I pulled out, but anyways, it's the black with the chartreuse. Now, all the heads I use, like I was telling you earlier, they're all pearled.
Yes.
Because it just seems to show up better than just a standardized color.
Right.
So I pearlize all the heads.
Okay.
And then some of the other colors, you know, my box isn't too organized because I've been going through stuff, but of course you know me. You've got,
look at that,
you've got
blue
the
marabou with a pink.
And then of course,
It's a great color.
probably the one that catches a lot is the blue with the chartreuse pearl head.
Right.
And then, you know, and then one of the other colors that was doing real good for me this year, if I can get it out of here, and it will kick in again, and that is
Oh yeah.
the olive.
Olive with a pink head. Now, these jigs, people are not going to find jigs very often. It's very rare to find them tied to these weights. And so, Keith, if people wanted to track you down and get some of these jigs, I know they'll be able to find you on Facebook. How do they find you on Facebook?
You know, if you're doing a search, just look for Raven Jigs. It'll probably pull it up too.
There you go.
And then there should be a phone number on there, but also my phone number is 509-429-5126.
That's great. Well, I tell you what, we've learned so much this morning about scaling down and refining a technique for fishing in small water, low and clear conditions. And guess what? Now the fun starts, because we're going to head out on the river and we're going to fish with Keith Roe jigs and his techniques on the Methow River.
Honey, you are not gonna believe this. I bought Pepsi Next.
What's Pepsi Next?
It's the new cola from Pepsi. It's got real cola taste, but 60% less sugar.
Real cola taste. 60% less sugar.
Yeah. I know.
It's unbelievable.
But this is the most impressive thing I've ever experienced in my entire life.
Oh, definitely. Let me get a camera. I've never had anything like it. My parents are gonna flip.
Yeah, they're gonna be so proud.
Introducing Pepsi Next. Drink it to believe it.
Are you getting this, honey? It's going viral.
This is Dave Graybill, the Fishin Magician, and when I fish the Upper Columbia and the Methow Rivers for steelhead, I stay at the Lake Pateros Inn. I can tie my boat right up out front and be minutes from the action. The famous Miller Hole on the Methow is less than 2 miles away. The rooms are comfortable and surprisingly affordable, and I'll be making the Lake Pateros Inn my base camp. To learn how to book your room at the Lake Pateros Inn, log on to lakepaterosmotorin.com or call 866-444-1985.
Your depth is going to be almost center, and that's where your structure is, where these fish want to lay down in. And what it does, it runs about five feet along there, and if you'll notice, it keeps its depth until it gets down into this area here, and then it trails back out. So, and they're going to be laying anywhere, as you can see, that's kind of flat water, what I call winter water, and that's what they'll be laying in. The take's going to be subtle.
So start in here.
What we'll do
again.
is we'll go down to the point right here.
Yep.
I'll have you cast out. I'll let you go ahead and work that through. And now we got shore ice
I
up
see
here.
that right there.
So we may have to kind of
Walk
go
up above
and make a few casts a little further up in there and see what happens up in there. When we get down there, basically your depth is going to be, let's see, okay, you can go, yeah, put it about 2 inches above your float.
Okay, Keith and Raleigh are getting set up for their first cast on our first hole here. Fishing with Keith, I'll remind you, is Raleigh Schmitten. He's one of my frequent fishing buddies. We've caught a lot of steelhead together on the Upper Columbia. So let's see how we do here on our first hole on the Methow. Seeing this bobber drift down, there's a little bit of ice floating down the river too. Yeah, I'd say there's ice. Well, Keith, now you showed us exactly how to rig. Now, when you put this all together, what you're trying to do is keep your line kind of in line with your bobber. Is that right?
Possible, yeah.
Mend it as you go. That's where that long rod really comes in.
I saw my float did not come back up when I jigged it. It was so subtle.
Had to put a little bit of action on the float to get him to take.
I thought maybe, okay, we gotta... Wally, if you want to grab the net, yep, I'll do that place. We're gonna go up here. I don't want to use the shelf.
Yeah, there's a big rock shelf right below us here, which would make it difficult to land.
I want him to cross the current. We'll tire him out better.
I can get in.
What we probably do is bring him right down into here. I'll get him to drop. I just don't want him to drop off the shelf. I run the mono.
It is, isn't it?
Hey, Jake, where's the
Well, I'll be darned. we hooked a coho. I thought that fish looked awfully dark for a steelhead this time of year. There's still coho in the river. I'll be darned. I thought for sure when that bobber went down we had our first steelhead.
The goal of battery systems is to provide the best products combined with the most efficient service at competitive prices. I've found their people live up to this, so don't buy anything without talking to them. You should make their batteries and accessories your choice to power your vehicles and boats. This is Dave Graybill, and I choose battery systems to keep me running onshore and on the water. To find a battery systems product expert in a location near you, log on to batterysystems.net.
When you're fishing in Banks Lake, Lake Roosevelt, even Rufus Woods, the place to stay is at Cooley Playland in Electric City. They have camping and RV hookups right on the water. There's a launch with fuel and one of the best tackle shops in the area. You can get your state and tribal fishing licenses right there. Cooley Playland has been the friendly place to stay for fishermen for decades, and if you haven't camped there yet, you'll learn why. Call for reservations at 509-633-2657. Be sure to visit their website at cooleyplayland.com.
But again, it was because I was moving it a little bit.
And that float just disappeared.
Well,
next time you
it had
look.
to if I didn't see it.
A little better fish?
They're sitting down the current now on me. So I got him and the current I'm dealing with. Done yet. He's going to get in the shallow. He's not going to like it.
There he goes.
I didn't have that ice in there. I'd taken all the way in there. Probably a buck.
Yeah?
Woo! Sing that run. Why would you say buck?
At the broke surface. Sometimes the hands will break through. Even this time of year. And it's got that light. No, it's got the heavy hook, so I'm not worried about it.
Nice little fish. All right. Nice fish. Good one.
Those wilds. Yep.
Just shake him off and
Yep.
do it again.
Hey. I don't care if I catch one now because I got the steelhead. That's all I need for the day.
There you go. So icing the guides.
And the mistake a lot of guys do is they just come in there and dry pick the ice out.
Yeah?
Well, sometimes that can chip your guides.
Oh.
So what you're better off doing is just melt the ice off.
Just breathe it out.
Just breathe it out. And that way, because on some of these, especially any porcelain or even metal ones, you can actually damage your guides. And then what happens is you start cutting your line. And the next time you get a nice 16-pound steelhead and your line parts, you're going to know what's that.
That was a slow take, like you say, in this colder water. They're not jumping on them.
Net boy's off doing something else.
That's right.
I think he's snagged.
Well, when we get down to it, I'll be net boy. Let's see what we've got here.
Well, it's got a little bit of shoulder to it.
Yeah, we'll see what we've got. Yeah, they, especially with this light tackle, it's easy does it.
Well, if you notice too, is to keep it off the reel, I'm using my hand as part of the drag system.
Ah.
So that I don't have to mess too much with my drag.
And you're using the current too.
Yeah. Every time I can get him to cross current, go with current, it restricts his breathing.
Oh.
So it kind of prevents him, it tires him out.
Right.
The idea is to get him in as quick as possible, and if it is a while, get him back out as quick as possible.
Right.
It's like that last one, I knew once I saw it, I just kind of I didn't let it have any more drag and started pulling up on him. I want to do that real close to the shales. Like I said earlier, normally I'd have taken him, gone into here, but I got that shelf ice, so I can't get him.
Oh yeah. Into that back eddy.
He hasn't broke water, but
Getting closer.
the female, even in this cold condition, sometimes will break water. If it is a steelhead. If coho's still in here finishing up the spawn, it's hard telling sometimes, like we did the first one. Yeah.
Well, there he goes again, and of course he wants to get down to that shelf.
Of course. Wants to hide. Doesn't like the shallow, but it's not going to like it when I get him into shallow water.
There, I got a glimpse. It's amazing how much pressure you can put on a fish with that long rod and even the light line. 8 pound, you can put a lot of pressure on fish. What do we got?
Steelhead. He's just about done too.
Yeah, great.
Net boy.
Okay. Oh yeah,
Another wild.
wild fish. Okay.
Put a little more pressure on him to get him popped up, but I can feel that on my hook setup. I'm a little more solid, I think. Another male, it looks like, too.
Okay, I'll run get the net.
She's stout. She's a big girl.
She is a big girl. Look at that. My goodness. Yeah, that's definitely a 2-salt fish.
And look how clean her dorsal fin is.
Yeah.
That's a good indication it's a what we call a true wild or a natural origin fish.
Big high dorsal.
Yeah. Well, clean, no bending.
Yeah.
You know, and her fins are all in good shape, tail's in good shape, good adipose.
Oh.
She's about 29 inches.
Right. Oh, gosh.
All right, big girl. Go make some babies.
Very nice. Ooh, that was great, Keith.
Your town Ford is kicking off the season with the best deals of the year. It's the Built Ford Tough Truck event. Great power and amazing fuel economy means no compromises. And that's what you get in a truck built Ford Tough, like the Ford F-150 with a powerful and efficient EcoBoost engine. The power you want and the economy you need. Or Ford Super Duty with its amazing 6.7-liter Power Stroke turbo diesel. If you're looking for power, payload, towing economy, your town Ford's got the truck for you. Head to your town Ford in East Wenatchee.
Boating is something the whole family can enjoy, and it's surprising how affordable a new boat can be from Bob File Boats and Motors. Stop in today and take a look at the largest selection of boats in North Central Washington, including top names, Bayliner and Tahoe. Bob File Boats and Motors can help you find that boat that fits your needs. And whether it's for fishing or just a ride on the water, you can be sure your new boat will provide hours of fun for years to come. Visit the boating experts today. Bob File Boats and Motors on the Sunset Highway in East Wenatchee, the place to buy a boat.
Well, with us today, fishing right alongside Keith Roe, it's my buddy Raleigh Schmitten. And Raleigh, what did you think of what we learned today about light tackle fishing for steelhead?
Keith, let me first of all say thank you.
No problem.
I'm amazed at what you can learn with somebody that knows the water, and the tackle that you introduced us to today. Fantastic. I'm going to take home a few secrets that I'm not going to share with too many people.
Well, it was my pleasure. It was nice meeting you for the first time. Name has always come up. I get to meet you.
Usually in trouble.
Oh, no.
But, well, what you impressed me is not only the gear, but reading the water, saying right on the seam, this edge. Those are things that I thought I knew, but boy, did I pick up some great tips.
That was the value of today. We learned a lot. That's something I love about fishing. There's always something new to learn. And Keith, thanks for sharing what you know with us.
That's my pleasure.